You have heard the story 1,000 times. It plays like a favorite movie in the back of your mind. The unknown artist posts a song online and wakes up to 1 million streams. The developer codes an app in a weekend and sells it for a fortune. The writer, unknown and unpublished, lands a life-changing book deal from a single viral tweet. These stories are the modern folklore. They are the digital age fairy tales we tell ourselves when the work is hard and the progress is slow. We call it the overnight success. And it is a lie, a beautiful, seductive, and deeply corrosive lie. Today, we are going to dismantle that lie, piece by piece. Not with anger, but with clarity. Not to discourage you, but to liberate you. Because the truth about how things are truly built, about how mastery is genuinely won, is far more interesting, far more demanding, and ultimately far more rewarding than any fairy tale. This is not about denying success. It is about redefining it on your terms. It is about shifting your gaze from the dazzling, blinding spotlight of the breakthrough moment and training it instead on the long, quiet, and essential road that leads there. The myth we must break first is the myth of the timeline. The human mind loves a clean narrative. Struggle, then a key moment, then triumph. We compress 10 years of effort into a single sentence. They worked for a decade and then they got discovered. That "and then" does all the damage. It creates a magical separator between the labor and the reward, implying that the labor was just waiting, marking time. But that is not how it works. The labor is not the waiting room before you meet the doctor. The labor is the medicine. The process is not the obstacle to the goal. The process is the substance of which the goal is made. So let us begin there, with what is invisible. If you have ever stood at the base of a massive redwood tree, you have felt a certain awe. Its height is staggering. It dominates the landscape. You look up and think, how did this get here? The answer, of course, is time. But more specifically, it is a particular kind of work happening where you cannot see it. For every foot of majestic trunk soaring into the sky, there is a corresponding, sprawling, intricate network of roots digging deep and wide into the dark earth. The tree's stability, its ability to draw nutrients, its resilience in storms, is not determined by the visible bark and branches alone. It is determined by the hidden, tangled, relentless growth of the root system. Your success, any lasting success, is exactly like that. What you see in the overnight moment is the canopy, the bloom, the impressive visible result. But what made that moment possible was the years, the decades of root growth in the dark. The skills patiently developed when no one was paying you, the books read, the courses taken, the failures analyzed in private, the small projects completed for an audience of one. The hours spent not on the stage but in the empty rehearsal room. This is the invisible work, and it feels, while you are doing it, like nothing. It feels like you are underground. It is messy, it is slow, it is entirely without applause. You cannot take a photograph of it and post it. You cannot measure your progress in likes or followers. You are simply building capacity. You are building your foundational network. And you must learn to love this phase not as a necessary evil, but as the very source of your future strength. Because when the storm comes, and it will, or when the season of drought arrives, it will not be your beautiful leaves that save you. It will be your roots. This brings us to the most misunderstood phrase in the history of achievement. Preparation meets opportunity. We say it lightly, as if preparation is a suitcase you pack and opportunity is a train that arrives on schedule. But this is not a casual meeting of two strangers. This is a destined collision between two forces that have been moving toward each other for a long time. Think of it not as luck, but as a law, the law of prepared response. Opportunity is not a discrete event. It is a constant, subtle pressure, like the wind. It is always blowing. The question is not whether the wind will come, but whether you have built a sail. Preparation is the meticulous crafting of that sail. Stitch by stitch, day by day, you are assembling the precise apparatus that can capture the energy of that wind and translate it into forward motion. When someone appears to have been lucky, what you are actually witnessing is a perfect, prepared response to a condition that everyone else experienced as mere background noise. They felt the same wind you did, The difference is they had a sail. They were not waiting for a different wind. They were ready for the one that was already there. But readiness is not a passive state. It is forged under pressure. Pressure is not the enemy of success. It is its revealer. Pressure does not create your character. It exposes the patterns you have been rehearsing in private. When the stakes are high, when the eyes are on you, when the deadline is looming, you do not rise to the occasion. You default to your most ingrained level of preparation. You fall to the level of your systems. You react with the reflexes you have built over 10,000 silent repetitions. Consider two individuals facing the same public failure. One has spent years defining their worth by external validation. Their practice has been the rehearsal of shame, the internal dialogue of not enough. When the failure comes, the pressure reveals that pattern. They collapse into it. They see the failure as a verdict. The other individual has spent years defining their worth by their commitment to the process. Their practice has been the rehearsal of curiosity, the internal dialogue of what can I learn. When the identical failure arrives, the pressure reveals that pattern. They engage with it. They see the failure as data. The pressure did not make them different. It showed you who they already were. Or consider the pressure of a sudden, unexpected opportunity, a chance to present, to perform, to take the lead. One person has posted, relying on talent and last-minute effort. When the call comes, they feel only panic. The pressure reveals a pattern of avoidance and superficial work. Another has done the invisible root work. They have over-prepared as a matter of principle, even for things that may never happen. When the call comes, they feel a focused calm. The pressure reveals a pattern of deep practice and quiet confidence. The moment of pressure is merely the spotlight swinging onto the stage. It shows you what has always been standing there in the dark. To build those patterns, to do that deep work, requires a resource more precious than talent, more scarce than money: focused attention. We live in an economy of distraction. Every ping, every notification, every trending topic is a bid for a slice of your attention, which is to say, a slice of your life. We have conflated busyness with productivity and activity with achievement. They are not the same. You can be in motion and be going nowhere. Focus is the act of choosing one thing, and in that choosing, saying no to 1,000 other things. It is the deliberate placement of your mental energy on a single point, like using a magnifying glass to concentrate the diffuse rays of the sun into a beam capable of starting a fire. Diffused light is pleasant, but it cannot ignite. Diffused effort is activity, but it cannot create. You must protect your focus not as a casual preference, but as a lifeguard protects a pool, with constant vigilance. This means creating boundaries that others may not understand. It means turning away from good things to dedicate yourself to the essential thing. It means recognizing that distraction is not just an interruption of your time, it is a fracture of your potential. When you split your focus, you are not doing two things at once. You are doing two things poorly, and you are eroding your capacity to ever do one thing deeply. The cultivation of focus allows you to enter the true growth sequence. This is not a vague journey. It is a specific cyclical engine. Learn, apply, evaluate, correct, persist. You learn a new principle, a new skill, a new piece of knowledge. Then you must apply it in the real world, where it is clumsy and imperfect. Then you must have the courage to evaluate the result with ruthless honesty, without ego. Then you must correct your approach based on that feedback. Then you must persist in this cycle long enough for the correction to take hold, which leads you right back to a new, deeper level of learning. This is the loop. This is the work. The overnight success is simply the final, public iteration of this loop after it has been run silently thousands of times. This is where we must divorce ourselves from the fickle cousin of achievement, motivation. Motivation is an emotion. It comes and goes like the weather. It is a feeling. Discipline, however, is a decision. It is the infrastructure you build so that you can work regardless of the weather. Relying on motivation is like trying to farm based on rainfall alone. You will have bursts of growth followed by long droughts. Discipline is the irrigation system you build. It ensures a consistent, life-giving flow of effort, whether you feel inspired or not, whether it's sunny or stormy. You do not need to feel like writing. You need a system that puts you in the chair at the same time every day. You do not need to feel like training. You need a schedule and a commitment that pulls you to the gym regardless of your mood. Motivation gets you started on day 1. Discipline gets you to day 500. And on day 501, when you look up and see how far you've come, that feeling you get, that is not motivation. That is the satisfaction of a promise you kept to yourself. That is the compound interest of discipline, which requires a new understanding of time. We want linear progress. We put in a unit of effort and expect a corresponding unit of reward to appear immediately. But growth does not work on a spreadsheet. It works in seasons. There is a season for planting, which is all faith and no fruit. There is a season for tending, which is all work and little visible change. There is a season for waiting, which tests your patience to its absolute limit. And only then, a season for harvest. You cannot rush the resistance lessens. The wheel gains a whisper of its own momentum. A project leads to a slightly bigger one. A skill mastered makes learning the next one faster. A connection made introduces you to a wider network. This is not luck. This is stored energy being released. This is the harvest season beginning. And when it does, you must be ready. Not just with your skills, but with your mind. Because the greatest danger at this point is not failure. It is misunderstanding the source of your success. You must remember the 10,000 pushes. You must remain the person who is willing to push, even when the wheel is spinning on its own. The moment you believe the myth of your own overnight success is the moment you stop doing the fundamental work, and the wheel eventually will slow down. So what does this mean for you today, right now? It means a profound shift in focus. It means you stop looking for the shortcut, the hack, the viral moment. You stop waiting for the spotlight, and you begin to fall in love with the dark. You begin to treasure the quiet mornings before anyone else is awake, the late nights long after everyone has logged off. You begin to see these not as sacrifices, but as your sacred space for building. This is where you tend to your roots. This is where you stitch your sail. Ask yourself, what is the one skill, if you improved it by just 5%, would change everything? Not the flashy skill, but the fundamental one, the root skill. For a writer, it might not be writing a better climax, but building a more consistent daily writing habit. For an entrepreneur, it might not be a better sales pitch, but a deeper understanding of their customer's deepest frustration. For an artist, it might not be a more striking color palette, but a more disciplined study of foundational anatomy. Find that root and water it today, not with a flood of effort that will evaporate by tomorrow, but with a consistent, disciplined trickle that soaks deep into the soil. This is a long game, and to play a long game, you need a long mind. A mind that is not tossed about by every wave of popular opinion, by every new trend that promises instant results. A mind that can hold a vision for years while working on the details of today. This requires curation. You must curate what you allow into your mind just as carefully as you curate what you allow into your body. The stories you consume about success matter. If you fill your mind with the highlight reels of overnight sensations, you are poisoning your own patience. Instead, seek out the biographies of the builders, the creators, the innovators. Study the decades before the breakthrough. Immerse yourself in the timelines that show the true scale of the work. This is not discouraging, it is validating. It tells you that your own long, slow path is not a sign that you are doing it wrong, but a sign that you are doing it right. And you must build a sanctuary for your focus. This is non-negotiable. Identify the 2 or 3 daily distractions that fracture your focus most often. It might be the phone beside your bed, the email tab always open, the constant checking of metrics that are too young to mean anything. Design a ritual to silence them. Put the phone in another room, use an app to block the websites for a set period each morning. Schedule specific times to check email, and then close it. This is not about deprivation, this is about creation. You are not saying no to distraction, you are saying yes to a deeper, more meaningful output. You are saying yes to the version of yourself that can build something substantial. Within that sanctuary, you will face resistance. There will be a voice that tells you it's not working, that you should try something else, that you are not cut out for this. That voice is not your enemy. It is the voice of your old self, the self that is comfortable with the way things are, the self that fears the responsibility of real achievement. Do not argue with that voice. Thank it for its concern, and then return to the work. The work is the only argument that matters. Each time you sit down and do the disciplined thing, you are casting a vote for your new self. You are not waiting for a transformation to happen to you. You are building it, action by action. This is also where community, carefully chosen, becomes oxygen. Not a community of complainers or dreamers who never act, but a community of builders. Find 1 or 2 people, even online, who are on a similar path of deep work. You do not need cheerleaders, you need witnesses. People who understand the value of the invisible push, who can ask you the honest question, did you do your root work today? Accountability of this kind is not about shame, it is about shared commitment to a higher standard. It reminds you that you are not alone in the dark. Others are down here too, tending their own roots, believing in a future harvest they cannot yet see. And as you do this, you must redefine your relationship with results. Our culture screams for quarterly reports, for monthly growth, for weekly virality. But a tree does not grow on a quarterly report. It grows according to the rhythms of the earth. Your most important work will not conform to an artificial timeline. Therefore, you must create your own metrics for the seasons of planting and tending. Your metric is not revenue, but relationships built. Your metric is not published words, but consistent hours in the chair. Your metric is not pounds lost, but workouts completed. You measure the input, the effort, the discipline. You trust that if you get the inputs right, consistently and intelligently over a long enough timeline, the outputs will take care of themselves. They have no other choice. It is a law. This is a long journey, and it will change you. It will sand down your rough edges of impatience and replace them with the smooth grain of resilience. It will quiet the frantic voice of comparison and amplify the steady voice of inner direction. The person who finally steps into the spotlight after 10 years of root work is not the same person who started. They are calmer, they are wiser, they are less impressed by the spectacle and more committed to the substance. They have earned a quiet confidence that cannot be faked because it was forged in the private fires of their own perseverance. They know, in their bones, that the breakthrough was not an event, but a threshold, a doorway they finally walked through after a very, very long walk. So let us retire the phrase overnight success. Let us replace it with something truer, a decade of preparation meeting its moment, the visible flowering of a long-nurtured seed, the public arrival of a privately built life. This is the truth, and this truth is your greatest advantage. While everyone else is chasing the flash, you can be building the foundation. While everyone else is distracted by the noise, you can be listening for the signal. While everyone else is burning out in a sprint for quick results, you can be settling into the steady, sustainable stride of a marathon runner. You are not behind. You are on a different path, a deeper path. And on this path, there are milestones, but there is no true finish line. The breakthrough is not an end. It is a new beginning with a new set of challenges. The athlete who wins the championship must then defend the title. The writer who publishes the best-selling book must face the pressure of the next one. The entrepreneur who scales the company must learn to lead at a new level. The cycle begins again. Learn, apply, evaluate, correct, persist. The flywheel keeps spinning, but now you are pushing a larger, heavier wheel. The work never ends. It simply evolves, and that is the beautiful secret. The goal was never to arrive at a destination of permanent rest. The goal was to fall in love with the quality of your effort, to find meaning in the work itself. When you understand this, a deep peace settles over you. The anxiety of when will it happen begins to fade. It is replaced by the purposeful calm of this is what I do. You are no longer a lottery ticket waiting to be drawn. You are a craftsman, a gardener, a builder. Your satisfaction comes from the feel of the tool in your hand, the quality of the stitch, the health of the soil. The external result becomes a natural byproduct, not the obsessive target. This is freedom. This is how you build a life that is resilient to the ups and downs of fortune, because your identity is rooted not in your outcomes, but in your process. You are not a success because you achieved something. You are a success because of how you choose to spend your days. The achievement is simply a signpost along that road. Now look at your own life. Look at the areas where you feel impatient, where you're glancing sideways at others' apparent overnight leaps. I want you to pull your gaze back. Zoom out. Look at the last 5 years of your journey in that area. See the slow, meandering path of progress. See the skills you didn't have then that you have now. See the lessons learned from failures that seemed catastrophic at the time, but now inform your wisdom. That is your root system growing. That is your flywheel being pushed inch by agonizing inch. Your job is not to despise that past or to anxiously leap over your present. Your job is to honor it, to see it as the necessary, invaluable ground from which everything that comes next will grow. Your next step is not a dramatic leap. It is a disciplined decision. It is the decision to turn off the noise for 1 hour today and do the one piece of invisible work that matters most. It is the decision to go to sleep an hour earlier so you can wake up and push the wheel when the world is quiet. It is the decision to study instead of scroll, to create instead of consume, to practice instead of perform. These decisions, stacked one upon the other, day after day, create a structure, and that structure becomes the trellis upon which your future success will grow. This channel exists to be a voice for that process, a reminder in the midst of a noisy world shouting about quick fixes and instant fame that there is another way, a quieter, harder, more magnificent